The storm hit without warning. Lightning danced across the clouds, and the wind howled like a wild animal. Aaron Vale tightened his jacket and hunched against the gusts, his boots slipping over the wet metal of the landing platform. He had worked on this moon for years, far from the centers of trade and power. Life was simple here: salvage work, repairing old ships, and avoiding trouble. But tonight, something unusual drew his attention. A faint sound came from the wrecked cargo pod at the edge of the platform. At first he thought it was the wind, but then there was a soft whimper. Aaron frowned and stepped closer, the storm pushing against him with cruel force. The pod was cracked open, and inside, curled together, were two small figures. Their eyes were wide with fear, and their small bodies shivered. He could see tiny wings folded against their backs, scales that shimmered dimly under the stormlight. They looked fragile, weak, and lost. Aaron crouched and spoke softly, trying not to scare them further. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." He held out a hand, and after a long pause, one of them, slightly older, with silver-tinged scales, crept forward. The other stayed close, hiding behind her sister. Aaron noticed their wings were small and underdeveloped, their claws almost human-like. They were not what he expected. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low. The wind carried his words away almost before they reached the creatures. They didn't answer. Instead, the younger one, whose scales glowed faintly pink, whispered, "Please, don't." Aaron's heart tightened. He had rescued beings before, abandoned pets, stray aliens, but never anything like this. He studied them carefully. They were dragons, small and timid, but clearly intelligent. Still, their appearance suggested they were ordinary runaways or orphans. There was no sign of danger, no sign of power. Aaron had heard stories about dragons, legends of fire-breathing queens and stars burning in their wake, but these two looked like children lost in the wrong place. He helped them out of the pod, shielding them with his body as the storm beat down. Their tiny claws scraped his gloves as they clung to him, shivering from cold and fear. Aaron carried them to the small shelter he had built beside his living quarters. The girls, he still didn't know their names, watched everything with wide eyes, alert to every movement. They were cautious, but there was also trust forming slowly, almost imperceptibly. Inside the shelter, Aaron lit a small heater and offered them water. He spoke gently. "You're safe here. No one will hurt you." The silver-scaled girl stepped forward, sniffed the water, and drank. The pink-scaled one stayed close, hiding behind her sister. Aaron didn't push. He knew fear could be as deadly as any storm. He looked at them closely. Their scales were dull, not the bright, glittering kind he had read about. Their wings were too small to fly. Their eyes, though, were sharp, curious, and intelligent. Something about them seemed unusual, but he couldn't put his finger on it. Perhaps it was the way they studied him, or how quickly they noticed the smallest changes in the room. Night fell slowly outside, and the storm eased into a drizzle. Aaron found a small blanket and wrapped them both carefully. "You need to rest," he said. They didn't protest. For a moment he simply watched them, unsure what to do next. It was strange. He had expected creatures that were weak or helpless, but there was a spark in them, a quiet strength. He decided to give them names. The silver one, Luma, he said quietly. The pink one, Ceres. The names felt right, though he wasn't sure why. The girls listened silently, and Luma blinked slowly as if acknowledging the sound. Ceres peeked from behind her sister, her small head tilting in curiosity. Days passed. Aaron gave them food and water, helped them clean, and made them comfortable in his modest shelter. He watched them carefully as they explored their small space. Luma was cautious but clever, learning quickly to avoid hazards. Ceres was shy but observant, noticing things Aaron had never considered. The way metal could shift, the way small leaks in the walls could be fixed. Aaron began to understand that they were no ordinary children. Their bodies were small, but their minds were quick. They healed faster than normal, and when they touched broken machinery, things sometimes started working as if by accident. He laughed quietly to himself. Lucky little dragons, he said. Or maybe just smart ones. Still, he did not know their past. No one had come searching for them, yet. He worried that someone somewhere would. He had heard whispers of dragon politics, families who fought across star systems, and queens who ruled with fire and fear. Could these two fragile creatures be part of that world? He hoped not, because if they were, he was unprepared for what might come. Aaron held them close that evening, feeling their warmth against the cold night. Luma rested her small head on his shoulder, Ceres pressed against him from the other side. For the first time in years, Aaron felt a sense of belonging. These tiny dragons had no one else, and somehow he felt responsible for them. Not as a master or a ruler, but as a father. Outside, the stars blinked through the thinning storm clouds. Somewhere far away, a signal pulsed in deep space. Aaron did not know it yet, but it was meant for the ones he had just rescued. The signal was searching for its heirs. The quiet tension of the night held a secret, a force far older and stronger than anything Aaron had faced. But here, in his small shelter on a forgotten moon, he only knew that 2 frightened dragon girls were safe. And for now that was enough. He smiled, tired but determined. "We'll figure this out together," he whispered. Luma blinked and Saris finally nodded, the smallest gesture of trust. Outside, the storm had passed, but the calm was only the beginning of what was coming. Aaron Vale had found the impossible, and he did not yet know how much it would change his life, or the life of the galaxy. Aaron woke early that morning, the pale light of the moon casting long shadows across his small shelter. Luma and Saris were already awake, their eyes bright and alert. They had learned quickly to move around the small space without breaking anything. Aaron had spent hours teaching them the basics of life on the moon, how to handle tools, how to patch leaks, how to manage the old machines he salvaged. But even he noticed that their learning speed was not normal. When he showed them how to repair a simple power conduit, Luma barely watched him for a few seconds before taking the tools herself. Her small claws were careful, precise, and almost unervingly confident. In moments, the conduit hummed to life, the sparks fading without a single flicker. Aaron blinked. That shouldn't have worked," he muttered. He checked the wiring, sure he had missed a step. But everything was correct, perfectly intact. Luma looked up at him, her silver eyes curious but calm, as if this was ordinary. Saris was different. She preferred observation. She sat quietly while Aaron worked on the old water recycler, her pink-tinged scales glowing faintly in the dim light. When a sudden leak threatened to flood the shelter, she reached out instinctively. The metal bent slightly under her touch, and the leak stopped instantly. Aaron stared, mouth open. You're too fast," he whispered. It was impossible, yet the evidence was clear. Life with the girls was not easy, but it was remarkable. Every day they learned more than Aaron could teach. They asked questions that showed intelligence beyond their years, and they remembered every detail he gave them. Aaron tried to keep a routine, but it often felt like the girls were teaching him instead. They healed quickly when they scraped themselves, their small injuries disappearing in minutes. Aaron often joked that they were lucky little dragons, but deep down he wondered if luck could explain everything. One evening, a small mining drone came loose from its station outside and began spinning uncontrollably. Aaron ran toward it, shouting, trying to cut its power. Luma and Saris appeared at his side. Luma touched the drone lightly and immediately it stopped. The lights blinked, then stabilized. Aaron stared, unable to comprehend how this had happened. "I don't know how you did that," he said quietly. Luma shrugged as if it were nothing. Saris pressed close, watching the drone carefully, eyes alert for any sign of danger. Aaron began noticing patterns. Whenever something dangerous or difficult approached, the outcome seemed to favor him. He dismissed it at first. Broken machinery repaired itself when the girls were near. Small accidents turned harmless. A sudden rock slide on the outer platform diverted at the last moment, barely missing him. "It's just coincidence," he muttered, but the words felt hollow. The more he lived with them, the more he realized that they were extraordinary. Despite their abilities, the girls were still children in many ways. They were playful, curious, and prone to hiding during sudden loud noises. Saris loved to hide behind Aaron, peeking out with wide eyes when he wasn't looking. Luma, braver and bolder, often explored the platform, her small wings fluttering when she jumped. Aaron laughed at their antics, though part of him worried that he could not protect them from everything. The girls began to show personalities that were almost human. Luma was thoughtful, often pausing to consider her actions before acting. Saris was cautious, quick to react to danger but slower to trust new people or machines. They had their quirks, but it was clear they understood the world in ways Aaron did not. One night, as he prepared food, Luma placed her small hand on his shoulder and said softly, "We want to help." Saris nodded. Aaron felt a surge of warmth. They were more than survivors. They wanted to be part of a family. Aaron also noticed subtle changes around the shelter. Broken machines began working as if someone had fixed them overnight. A light that flickered unpredictably became steady. Even the old generator, which had often failed without warning, ran without trouble. Aaron shrugged, attributing it to good luck, though he knew better. The girl's presence seemed to affect the world around them, in ways he did not fully understand. Days turned into weeks. Aaron took them on small trips to nearby salvage sites. The girls learned quickly, moving through the debris and wreckage with ease. They pointed out dangers he would have missed, Unstable metal, weak supports, sharp edges. Their instincts were sharp, almost unnatural. One day, as a small collapse threatened to trap them, Saris nudged Aaron aside, and a beam fell harmlessly past them. He stared at her in shock. You saved us." Saris looked confused. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said. Aaron laughed nervously, realizing that even the girls themselves did not fully understand their abilities. Despite the unusual events, Aaron never forced them to do anything. He let them learn, explore, and make choices. It was strange. He had rescued them thinking they were ordinary, but now he realized they were extraordinary in ways he could not explain. Luma and Saris were not just clever children. They were more, something beyond human comprehension. One quiet evening, Aaron sat outside the shelter watching the stars. The girls played nearby, their laughter soft and musical. He thought about the signal he had not noticed days ago, pulsing faintly in deep space, searching for its heirs. He wondered if that signal was meant for them. And if it was, what would happen when it found them? For now, though, life was peaceful. The girls were learning, growing, and thriving under his care. Aaron felt a mixture of pride and worry. Pride that he had found them, worry for what the future might bring. One thing was clear. Life with Luma and Saris was not ordinary, and nothing about them would ever be ordinary again. As night deepened, Aaron whispered to himself, "You're more than I imagined, but we'll face whatever comes together." Luma curled against him and Saris pressed close, the smallest gestures of trust and affection. Outside, the wind sighed through the broken structures, carrying with it a quiet warning. The galaxy was beginning to notice and the calm days would not last forever. Aaron watched the stars and smiled faintly. He didn't know what power the girls held or what dangers were coming, but he did know one thing. He would protect them no matter what. The ordinary life he had imagined for himself was gone. In its place was something extraordinary, and it had only just begun. The day began like any other on the small salvage moon. Aaron Vale had woken early, checking the shelter and making sure Luma and Saris were safe. The girls were already exploring, their small wings fluttering as they inspected the old machinery scattered across the platform. Aaron smiled at their curiosity, but the calm of the morning was shattered by a sudden roar that echoed across the sky. Aaron looked up, shielding his eyes from the glare of the approaching ship. It was unlike any human vessel he had ever seen, sleek, dark, and massive, with scales of metal that shimmered in the sunlight. The wind howled around it as it descended, and Aaron's heart thumped in his chest. His first instinct was fear, but he pushed it aside. He had faced storms, rock slides, and failing machinery. He could face this too. The ship landed with a force that shook the platform. A hatch opened and a figure stepped out. The being was tall and imposing, with scales that glinted like molten gold and eyes that burned with authority. Aaron recognized immediately that this was no ordinary creature. This was a dragon scout, a messenger of someone powerful. The scout's voice was calm but commanding. "I am here for the heirs of the Dragon Queen of Ashfall," it said, its words echoing strangely in the thin air. "Hand them over. They belong to their mother and the throne." Aaron's heart raced, but he did not falter. He looked at the scout, standing tall, his jaw set. "These girls are my children," he said firmly. "I found them. I am their guardian. They stay with me." The scout paused, its golden eyes narrowing. Aaron could see confusion flicker across its face. It had expected obedience, perhaps fear, maybe even worship. Instead, it faced defiance. It had not anticipated this. The scout's voice deepened, carrying a warning. "You do not understand what you are saying. These children are heirs. Their power, their destiny belongs to the queen. You cannot protect them from what they are meant to be." Aaron shook his head. "I don't care about destiny or power. I care about them. They are not trophies, they are living beings. I will not give them up." The scout stepped closer, and Aaron could feel the heat radiating from its body. The air seemed to vibrate with energy. Aaron's mind raced. He had no weapons that could match the scout, no shield strong enough to defend against it. And yet, he did not feel fear, not in the usual way. He felt resolve. He was not a soldier, not a hero, but he would stand for the girls. Luma and Saris stood behind him, small but alert. Luma's eyes shone silver, and Saris's pink scales glimmered faintly. The scout noticed the energy around them, the quiet strength in their posture. "They are more than ordinary," it said under its breath, almost to itself. Aaron took a deep breath. "They are learning to be kind, to be careful, to choose. They are not tools for war or power. They are children, and I will teach them what it means to be human. I claim them as my own." The scout's confusion deepened. It had expected surrender. It had expected obedience. Instead, it faced someone willing to risk everything for creatures that even it could not fully understand. The scout's tail flicked in agitation and its voice hardened. You underestimate the weight of the Queen's command. You underestimate what they are capable of. You cannot protect them from their blood. Aaron's gaze did not waver. He stepped forward, placing himself between the scout and the girls. I don't care about blood or command. I care about them. And they are my children. If you want to take them, you will have to go through me. The scout's head tilted slightly, studying him. There was a long silence, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's engines and the wind over the platform. Luma and Saris pressed close to Aaron, their small hands holding his jacket. Their trust gave him strength. He realized then that this was more than a stand of defiance, it was a choice. The choice to protect what he loved, even in the face of beings far stronger than him. Finally, the scout spoke again, its voice quieter, almost hesitant. Your courage, it is unusual. Humans are fragile, yet you stand against a dragon scout for children who are not yours by blood. Why? Aaron looked at the girls, their small faces full of curiosity and trust. Because they are my children in every way that matters. Blood does not make a parent. Care, protection, and love do. I won't let anyone take that from them. The scout considered his words. For the first time, it did not speak as a command. Instead, it observed as if trying to understand. You are brave, foolish but brave. The Queen will not be pleased. Aaron nodded. Then I will face her too if I must. But I will not give them up. A faint hum of recognition passed over the scout. Its golden eyes softened slightly and it stepped back. I will report your defiance, it said, turning toward the ship. But for now, I leave you with them. Do not mistake this for mercy. The Queen's gaze reaches farther than you know. The ship lifted off, shaking the platform slightly as it disappeared into the sky. Aaron let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Luma and Saris clung to him tightly and he hugged them back. It's okay, he whispered. We're safe, for now. The girls looked up at him, their eyes filled with questions he could not yet answer. Who was that? Saris asked softly. A scout, Aaron said. Someone sent by someone very powerful. But they don't decide who you are. I do. And I will protect you. Luma nodded, a small but firm gesture of trust. Saris pressed her cheek to his chest. Aaron felt the weight of responsibility settle on him. This was not just about survival anymore. This was about choice, about love, and about standing firm when the world expected fear. As night fell over the moon, Aaron watched the stars, thinking about what had just happened. The galaxy was vast, full of power he could barely imagine. But he also knew something that no scout, no queen, no legend could understand. Humans could choose differently. Humans could love, even when fear or power demanded obedience. And that choice, Aaron realized, was stronger than any signal, stronger than any command, stronger than the fire of the galaxy's most feared dragons. He looked at Luma and Saris sleeping quietly in their small beds and whispered, We'll face whatever comes next together. Outside, the stars glittered cold and distant, but inside, in a small shelter on a forgotten moon, the warmth of trust and courage burned brighter than any fire. The sky over the salvage moon darkened without warning, not from clouds, but from shadows stretching across the stars. Aaron Vale looked up in disbelief as a massive fleet appeared on the horizon. Ships of all sizes, covered in black and silver scales, moved in formation, blotting out the light of distant suns. At their center, the largest ship pulsed with energy, radiating authority and power. The Dragon Queen had arrived. Aaron felt the weight of the moment settle over him like a storm. Every story he had ever heard about dragons, about their queens, about the power they wielded across the galaxy, suddenly felt real. The fleet was here for Luma and Saris, and it would take nothing less than all of the Queen's wrath to force them into obedience. Aaron's first instinct was fear, but he pushed it aside. The girls needed him to stand tall, to be more than a man, they needed him to be a father. The Queen's flagship descended, enormous and gleaming, casting shadows over the platform. Her voice rang out, carried over the comms, deep and commanding. Aaron Vale, she said. You have claimed my children. You have no right. Bow and return them to me or face consequences you cannot imagine. Aaron's jaw tightened. He stepped forward, placing himself between the Queen's approaching fleet and the small shelter where Luma and Saris waited. The girls hid behind him, their small wings folded, their eyes wide. Luma's silver scales glimmered faintly, Saris's pink ones shimmering. They were quiet but alert, trusting him completely. I will not bow, Aaron said, his voice steady. These girls are my children. Not by blood, perhaps, but by care, by protection, and by love. You may be a queen, but that does not give you the right to take them from me. The queen's laugh echoed across the moon, low and powerful, shaking the ground beneath his feet. You dare speak to me as a father? She said. I am the Dragon Queen of Ashfall. My children are heirs to empires and stars. You are nothing but a human. Why should I listen? Aaron did not flinch. He knew he was small, fragile, and powerless compared to her fleet. But he also knew something the queen had not fully understood about humans. They could be fearless for what they loved, not for what they feared. I speak because they are my responsibility, he said. I speak because I will protect them. I do not care about empires, crowns, or power. They are not trophies, they are my children. And I will not let you take them away. The queen's eyes narrowed. Luma and Sarah stepped forward slightly, as if sensing their father's courage. Luma's small silver wings quivered, Sarah's pink scales seemed to glow brighter. The queen noticed their presence, the quiet strength of the girls she had thought would bow immediately. She realized that Aaron had taught them more than obedience. He had given them choice. You teach them human ways, the queen said, her voice now quieter, more thoughtful. Do you understand what you are doing? They are heirs to power, to fear, to command. You are trying to raise them as humans? Aaron nodded. Yes. I teach them compassion, patience, responsibility. I teach them to choose, to understand others. Power without understanding is dangerous. You raised fear, but I am raising choice. And they are learning that from me. The queen's golden eyes flicked between Aaron and the girls. She had never seen humans behave this way, not with dragons, not with heirs of power. She expected groveling, begging, obedience. Instead she saw loyalty, trust, and courage. Aaron was standing for what he loved, even though he had no strength beyond his will. You are bold, she said at last. But courage alone does not protect them from their destiny. Aaron's voice did not waver. I am not asking to protect them from destiny. I am asking to protect them from being used as tools. I cannot stop what they are, but I can guide who they become. That is my right as their father. The queen paused. Her fleet hovered silently above the moon, watching. For the first time she was not commanding. She was observing. Her eyes softened slightly as she looked at Luma and Saris, who were standing quietly, not as subjects, but as children who had learned to trust. You have something I did not expect, she said finally. Humans are fragile, yet you stand firm. You speak with love, not fear. Perhaps, there is something to your way of raising them. Aaron blinked, unsure if he had heard correctly. You mean, you will let them stay? The queen's gaze returned to him, sharp and calculating. I do not give permission. I am testing you and them. Strength without wisdom is useless. They will need to make a choice, and I want to see if you can guide them without fear, without force. That is what will define them as heirs, not power alone. The girls stepped closer to Aaron, their small hands gripping his clothes. He held them close. We will do our best, he said quietly. And I will stand with them no matter what comes. The queen nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement, and her fleet began to shift, moving back into orbit. She did not leave completely. Her eyes remained on the moon, on Aaron and the girls. It was clear she would be watching, testing, waiting. But for now she allowed the small family to remain intact. Aaron exhaled deeply, feeling a weight lift slightly from his shoulders. Luma and Saris looked up at him with small smiles, their trust in him stronger than ever. He knew this was only the beginning, that challenges would come, and that the queen would not be patient forever. But in this moment he had stood firm. He had spoken as a father, not as a subject, and it had made a difference. Night settled over the moon, the stars returning to their places above the shelter. Aaron sat with the girls, holding them close, their warmth comforting against the chill. We've faced the queen, he whispered softly. And we are still together. That counts for something. The girls pressed against him, and for a moment the galaxy outside, the fleets, the power, the legends, felt distant. Here on this small moon they had family. They had trust. And that, Aaron knew, was stronger than fear, stronger than power, stronger than any queen in the stars. Outside, the fleet lingered, a shadow over the stars, but inside the shelter warmth and courage burned brighter than any light in the galaxy. And Aaron understood that the fight for their hearts, for their choices, had only just begun. The morning sky was pale and quiet, but the peace did not last long. Ships from human governments arrived at the moon, their engines loud, their weapons visible. Aaron Vale watched them approach, his heart heavy. These were leaders of colonies and trading stations, people who often saw dragons as unstoppable power. They had come to decide the fate of Luma and Ceres. Some planned to surrender, hoping to keep the humans alive. Others wanted to fight, seeing dragons as threats that could not be ignored. Aaron stepped forward, his hands raised slightly to show he meant no harm. Luma and Ceres stayed behind him, small but calm. Their presence gave him strength. He knew that the humans outside the shelter were ready to act based on fear or caution. They did not understand what he had learned about the girls, about trust, or about the strength that came from care rather than power. One leader stepped forward, a tall woman with a commanding voice. Aaron Vale, she said, we cannot let them remain. They are heirs to a dragon queen. The moment we interfere we risk annihilation. Stand aside or we will take them by force. Aaron shook his head. No, he said simply. They are not yours to take and they are not weapons to use. They are children. They deserve to choose who they want to be. A man beside the woman sneered. You are risking everyone for two creatures that are not even human. You cannot hope to protect them. Aaron looked out at the leaders, seeing the fear and caution in their eyes. He took a deep breath and spoke, not with weapons, not with threats, but with honesty. Humans have a strange kind of strength, he said. We are not always the strongest. We are fragile and we are small compared to the dragons. But we protect what we love. Even when we are powerless, we stand. We do not give up what matters to us. That is how we survive. That is how we are human. The leaders hesitated. His words were not loud, not commanding, but there was a quiet power in them. They realized that the girls were not just dragons and he was not just a human. There was a connection, a choice, a family. It was something that could not be measured with ships or weapons. The queen's fleet hovered silently above. Aaron knew she was watching. He knew she could destroy everything in an instant, yet he stood firm. He continued. These girls have learned to choose. They have learned kindness, patience, and responsibility. I did not raise them to obey out of fear. I raised them to think, to care, to understand. That is what makes them heirs worth following. The humans whispered among themselves. Some faces softened as they realized that the man before them was right. Strength alone did not guarantee survival, and power alone did not guarantee respect. The girl's future was not something to control, it was something to honor. Sarah stepped forward, her small hand holding Luma's. Luma nodded at her, then looked at Aaron. The girls were ready to speak for themselves, but Aaron held a hand up to pause them. It is our choice together, he said. We face this together as a family. The queen's voice came through the comms again, clear and steady. Aaron Vale, human. You have shown defiance and courage. Your words are unusual. I see now why you have kept my heirs. The galaxy will notice humans differently after this. Aaron met her gaze through the screens. We are not asking for respect. We earn it by protecting those we love. That is all we ask. The queen was silent for a long moment, then spoke again. Very well. The heirs will remain under your guidance, but their choice will be theirs to make. Humans have impressed me not with weapons or strength but with heart and care. Let this be remembered. The human leaders relaxed though they were still cautious. They had come expecting orders or conflict, but instead they witnessed something new. Humans could stand with dragons not through fear, not through force, but through protection and trust. Luma and Sarah stepped closer to Aaron, their eyes bright. We choose to stay with him, Luma said softly. Sarah nodded. We want to learn and grow with him, she added. Their voices were small but firm. They were not subjects. They were heirs making a choice, guided by someone who loved them. Aaron hugged them both. We will face everything together, he whispered. And we will be strong not because of fear but because of care. The queen's fleet began to lift, slowly returning to the stars. Her final words were measured. Humans have shown a new kind of strength. Do not disappoint them, my heirs. Aaron watched as the massive ships disappeared into the distance. He turned to the human leaders, who now regarded him with a mixture of awe and understanding. You see, he said, strength is not always measured in weapons. It is measured in what we protect, in what we love, and in the choices we make even when we are small. The leaders nodded, some silently, some with respect. They had learned something that would change their view of humans forever. Aaron looked at Luma and Ceres, their small hands still in his. They had survived fear, power, and expectation, but they had chosen. And together they had earned the respect of a galaxy. As the stars shone overhead, Aaron realized that life had changed forever. The moon was quiet again, but the lessons of courage, love, and protection would echo far beyond this small place. The girls had chosen him and he had chosen them. The human heart, fragile and small, had proven stronger than fear, stronger than power, stronger than even a dragon queen. Aaron looked at the girls and whispered, "We are ready for whatever comes next." Luma and Saris smiled, their trust unshakable, their hearts full. Together they had not only survived, they had made the galaxy see humans in a new light. Outside, the stars glittered, cold and distant, but inside their shelter warmth, trust and courage burned brighter than any light in the universe. And Aaron Vale knew that as long as he stood with them, they would face the future not with fear, but with heart. The galaxy had learned something new. Humans could protect, could love and could stand firm, even when the odds were impossible. And sometimes, that was more powerful than any fire or throne in the stars.